You're 7 years into the job when it stops feeling wrong. That's the thing nobody tells you about corruption. It doesn't announce itself with a dramatic choice. It arrives quietly in a Tuesday afternoon traffic stop that changes everything. The driver's a kid, maybe 22, hands shaking on the wheel. You've pulled over hundreds like him. Broken taillight, expired tags, the usual. He's nervous but compliant, which should make this quick. Except your partner leans over and whispers something that makes your stomach drop. This kid's cousin shot at a cop last month in a different district. Got away clean. No witnesses, no evidence, case going nowhere. Your partner opens the kid's trunk during the search. Comes back with a baggie of cocaine that definitely wasn't there 30 seconds ago. You know it wasn't there because you watched him palm it from his own pocket before he walked to the back of the car. He looks at you. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't need to. The question is implicit. Are you good with this or are we going to have a problem? You think about the cop who got shot at. You think about the cousin who's still walking free. You think about how this kid probably knew what his cousin did and said nothing. Somewhere in that calculation you find permission. You nod. The arrest report writes itself. Probable cause, plain view doctrine, suspect became agitated. Standard language that's been used 1,000 times because it works. The kid screams in the back of the patrol car that it's not his. They always say that. Sometimes they're even telling the truth. You tell yourself this isn't one of those times. You tell yourself the system is broken anyway. That prosecutors let real criminals walk on technicalities every day. That this is just balancing the scales. The lies come easier than you expected. 3 months later, you do it again. Different circumstances, same basic math. A domestic violence call where the boyfriend has a history but no current evidence. Your partner suggests you find some. There's a drawer in the bedroom that would be a logical place for someone to keep pills. You discover oxycodone that wasn't there before you opened it. The boyfriend goes away for possession. The girlfriend, who has a black eye and won't press charges, is temporarily safer. You've convinced yourself you're helping. The transformation isn't sudden. It's incremental. A series of small compromises that accumulate until you can't remember what your boundaries used to be. By year 9, you're planting evidence monthly. Sometimes it's drugs. Sometimes it's weapons. Always it's people who probably deserve it for something else. People who exist in that gray zone where guilt is assumed but proof is inconvenient. You get good at the mechanics. Latex gloves under your regular gloves so you don't leave prints. Evidence bags prepared in advance. The casual body positioning that blocks dashboard cameras during critical moments. You learn which judges ask questions and which ones rubber stamp warrants. You learn which prosecutors are true believers and which ones just want wins. The system has cracks everywhere once you know where to look. Your arrest rate is exceptional. Commendations pile up. You make detective ahead of schedule. Nobody questions your methods because your results are too good. The department doesn't want to look that closely. They need statistics that justify budgets and prove the war on crime is being won. You're giving them exactly what they want. At home, you're a different person. Your wife thinks you're working too much. Your daughter asks why you seem tired all the time. You tell them the job is demanding, which is true. What you don't tell them is that maintaining two versions of reality requires constant energy. The version where you're a good cop doing difficult work, and the version where you're manufacturing evidence against people who might be innocent. The cognitive dissonance should be unbearable. Instead, you've developed a philosophy that makes it tolerable. Real justice and legal justice aren't the same thing. The courts are clogged with procedural nonsense that lets dangerous people walk free. You're just correcting for a system designed by people who've never walked a beat, never seen what you've seen, never had to make impossible choices in impossible situations. You've justified it so thoroughly that when the new rookie gets assigned to you, you barely hesitate before bringing him into the fold. He needs to understand how things actually work, not how they're supposed to work in some academy fantasy. You take him to his first planted evidence scene 6 weeks into his training. He hesitates longer than you did, asks some more questions, but eventually he makes the same calculation you made 7 years ago. And just like that, the cycle continues. One more good cop learning that the badge doesn't mean what they thought it meant. The real question isn't why cops plant evidence. It's how many are doing it right now while telling themselves they're still the good guys. Year 12, and the rookie isn't a rookie anymore. He's sharper than you were, more efficient with his placements. He doesn't hesitate. That should concern you, but instead you feel something closer to pride. You've created a protege who understands the game better than you did at his stage. The call comes on a Thursday. Internal Affairs wants to talk. Not about anything specific, they say. Just routine interview about case procedures. You've heard that before. Routine means they're building something but don't have enough yet. You lawyer up immediately. Your union rep, a former detective who's seen every flavor of investigation, tells you to say nothing beyond name and badge number. They're fishing. Let them fish in empty water. The interview lasts 40 minutes. Two IA detectives, both younger than you, asking about evidence handling protocols. They show you case files from arrests you made 2-3 years ago. They want to know about chain of custody, about who had access to evidence rooms, about whether you ever noticed irregularities. You stick to the script. Answer only what's directly asked. Volunteer nothing. They're trying to provoke you into filling silence with explanations. You've used the same technique on suspects 100 times. Walking out, you notice something that makes your stomach drop. Your protege is sitting in the waiting area. He's scheduled after you. They're not just looking at one cop, they're mapping a network. You can't contact him. Any communication now becomes evidence of coordination. You drive home calculating exposure points. How many cases? Which ones have irregularities that could be proven? Evidence that might have your DNA despite the gloves? Dashboard footage you thought you positioned around? The mathematics of paranoia spiral endlessly. Your wife notices you're distracted at dinner. She asks what's wrong. You tell her it's nothing, just politics at work. She doesn't believe you, but she's learned not to push. Somewhere in the last 5 years, your marriage became a negotiation of what not to discuss. The distance between you isn't dramatic, it's just persistent, like background radiation slowly changing everything it touches. 3 weeks pass. Nothing happens, which somehow feels worse than action. You're waiting for the hammer to drop, but it just hangs there. Potential energy that never converts. You start reviewing old cases obsessively, looking for the one that'll break open. The evidence plant that was too sloppy. The defendant who hired a lawyer good enough to notice inconsistencies. Then your protege stops showing up for shifts. No explanation, no resignation, just gone. You call his cell, straight to voicemail. You drive past his apartment. The parking spot is empty. Either he ran or they've got him somewhere making a deal. The math shifts completely. If he flips, he can detail every case you walked him through. Every planted gun, every manufactured probable cause, every procedural shortcut that crossed into fabrication. You're not just exposed, you're documented. You think about running. Mexico, maybe. Somewhere without extradition treaties. You got $40,000 in cash hidden in the garage. Emergency fund you've been building since year 3. It's not enough to disappear forever, but it's enough to buy time. But running confirms guilt. And maybe IA has nothing solid. Maybe they're bluffing, hoping someone panics and makes a mistake. The smart play might be sitting tight, maintaining innocence, forcing them to prove what they probably can't. Your phone rings at 2 a.m, unknown number. You answer without thinking. The voice on the other end is your protege. He sounds wrecked, tells you he's in a motel outside the city, says IA offered him immunity for cooperation. Full testimony about every case, every planted piece of evidence. Every conversation where you explained how to beat the system. In exchange, he walks away clean. Keeps his pension, avoids prison. He's calling because he hasn't decided yet. Wants to know what you think he should do. The question is so absurd you almost laugh. What do you think he should do? Protect himself. Obviously, you'd do the same. You'd burn him without hesitation if positions were reversed. That's the nature of self-preservation once you've crossed certain lines. But you don't say that. Instead, you tell him to think carefully about who he wants to be, whether he can live with being the guy who buried his partner. You're appealing to loyalty that probably doesn't exist anymore, trying to manipulate him the same way you've manipulated suspects and witnesses in crime scenes for over a decade. He's quiet for a long time. Then he says he'll call you back. The line goes dead. You sit in your kitchen in the dark, waiting for dawn, waiting for the knock on the door, waiting for the machinery of justice you've spent years corrupting to finally turn its attention towards you. The call never comes. Not that night, not the next morning. Days pass in a haze of manufactured normalcy. You show up for work, file reports, interact with colleagues who either don't know or are pretending not to. The not knowing becomes its own torture. Worse than arrest, worse than confrontation. Just endless waiting for a future that's already been decided somewhere in rooms you'll never enter. Week 2, your lieutenant pulls you into his office, closes the door. The gesture alone tells you everything. He doesn't sit, doesn't offer you a chair. Just stands there looking at you like he's trying to reconcile the person in front of him with the officer he thought he knew. He tells you IA completed their investigation, found sufficient evidence to recommend termination and criminal prosecution, conspiracy, falsifying evidence, deprivation of rights under color of law, federal charges, the kind that come with mandatory minimums. Your protege didn't flip, didn't need to. Turns out that drug dealer from 3 years back, the one who took the plea deal, he kept documentation, recorded phone calls, copies of evidence logs with timestamps that don't match official records, even photographs of the planted gun before it entered the evidence chain. He's been building a case from inside prison, waiting for the right moment. That moment apparently arrived when IA started sniffing around your unit. The dealer's lawyer negotiated a sentence reduction in exchange for everything. Your lieutenant hands you a letter, official notification of administrative leave pending criminal proceedings. Your badge and weapon are to be surrendered immediately. He doesn't say anything else, doesn't need to. You empty your pockets onto his desk. The badge feels heavier than it should, or maybe lighter. You can't tell anymore. The arraignment happens on a Tuesday. Federal courthouse, same building where you testified dozens of times, same hallways, same courtrooms, different side of the bar. Your lawyer is competent but realistic, tells you the evidence is overwhelming, recommends cooperating, providing testimony about systemic issues in the department in exchange for reduced sentencing. You'd be trading information about other officers, supervisors who looked the other way, the culture that made corruption feel inevitable. The prosecutor is offering 8 years. Could be worse, could be 20. Your lawyer says you should take it. Probably right, but cooperation means confirming everything you've spent months denying to yourself. That the system wasn't broken when you entered it. You broke it. You and officers like you who decided the ends justified means that destroyed lives and families and any claim to legitimate authority. The judge sets bail at $200,000. You can't make it. Don't have that kind of money accessible, and nobody's willing to co-sign for a cop awaiting trial on corruption charges. You're remanded to county jail pending trial, the same facility where you've delivered dozens of suspects, where guards know your face, where inmates remember your testimony. First night, you're placed in protective custody. Isolated cell, minimal contact. It's for your safety, they say. What they mean is you're too high profile, too vulnerable. Word travels fast in jail. Dirty cop is target practice. Days become weeks. Your lawyer visits, discusses plea negotiations, trial strategy if it comes to that. Your wife visits once, brings divorce papers, doesn't say much beyond logistics, where she's moving, custody arrangements for your daughter. She's not angry. That would almost be easier. She's just done. Finished with the person you became while she wasn't paying attention. You sign the papers through the slot in the glass partition. Months pass in a rhythm of court appearances and plea negotiations. Eventually you take the deal. 8 years federal time. Testimony against 4 other officers and 2 supervisors. Full cooperation with ongoing investigations into department practices. The sentencing hearing lasts 30 minutes. Victims speak. People whose cases you corrupted, whose lives got derailed by evidence you manufactured. Their words don't bounce off anymore. You hear every syllable. Federal prison is different than county. Structured, predictable. You're nobody special here. Just another inmate with a number and a release date circled on a calendar that's impossibly far away. You work in the kitchen. Read in the library. Avoid thinking about the daughter who'll be 15 when you're released, who'll have grown up with a father defined entirely by his absence and his crimes. Some nights you lie awake calculating the cost. How many lives you damaged for career advancement and mortgage payments and the feeling of being untouchable. The math never balances. Years from now, you'll walk out with time served and nothing waiting. No badge, no family, no identity beyond former cop who proved every cynical assumption about law enforcement. You'll be exactly what you feared most when you started. Just another cautionary tale about what happens when you forget the oath only matters if you mean it. The system didn't corrupt you. You corrupted yourself and blamed the system because that required less honesty than admitting you traded principles for convenience the moment it benefited you. Every cop planting evidence right now is making that same trade, telling themselves the same lies, building toward the same ending. Different timeline, same destination.